All right, AP Human Geography students, here's our second video. Why are resources being polluted? Well, it's due to byproducts of fossil fuels, but let's get more into it. Let's first talk about air pollution. Let's talk about the Earth's atmosphere for a second here. All right, it's made up of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and less than 1% argon, and something called trace gases, right? 0.04 there. So what are trace gases? Well, air pollution is a type of concentrated trace gas, which is resulted from burning fossil fuels. Some examples are carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, so on and so forth here. The top three air pollutants, which should be no surprise to you, are motor vehicles, industries such as factories, and power plants. Now, air pollution can be categorized into three scales of how it affects the environment. All right, first off, let's talk about the global scale. So, you probably heard of this, global warming, which is essentially damaging the ozone layer due to air pollution. Now, it's a fact the Earth's surface temperature has risen 2 degrees Fahrenheit over the last century. Now, again, this is due to burning fossil fuels and, some other variables that you see in this picture to the right here. Now, what happens is heat is released from the sun, which therefore becomes trapped because of this pollution in the Earth's atmosphere, specifically carbon dioxide. Over time, the Earth warms, and what this essentially is called the greenhouse gas effect, which is a little diagram to the right, and we'll be talking more about that in class. And what are some possible outcomes of this greenhouse gas effect and global warming? Well, the polar ice caps can melt and sea levels can rise, and what happens is that places near the sea become flooded and huge migrations of people move inland, and what this can also result in is political turmoil if, let's say, for example, some countries go completely underwater. All right, let's talk about now the regional scale. So this can result in acid deposition and acid precipitation. Ugh. This is due to sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides. And what happens is these deposits, they rise into the Earth's atmosphere and often fall back to the Earth in forms of droplets. Now, unfortunately, where the pollution originates usually is not where this acid precipitation or acid deposition occurs. It usually occurs elsewhere, unfortunately. So what's the environmental impact of this? Well, it damages obviously vegetation, animals, and water supply. Currently, about 5% of the United States eastern lakes are polluted due to acid rain. Now, governments around the world are very reluctant to impose regulations on these factors because it's due to high cost, and what that could do is it can make goods even more expensive. So unfortunately, this is still occurring without much to stop it. All right, let's talk about a local scale now. So there are several places where emissions are very severe and concentrated. All right, so let's talk about these three things here. So one is carbon monoxide, where power plants and obviously lots of motor vehicles are located. Second is hydrocarbons that are produced from power plants, motor vehicles, and actually the evaporation of paint solvents. This creates a haze or essentially a fog over a city. It can be found in Cairo, Egypt, but one example that we talked about is Linfen, China. You see that picture to the right there. And also something called particulates, which are from factory smoke and diesel trucks. All right, on to a different type of pollution, water pollution. So, interesting fact, the average American consumes 1,400 gallons of water per day, and that's through drinking, cooking, bathing, going to the bathroom, etc. All right, so three main sources of water pollution are from the following: water-using industries, steel mills, paper products, and food processing plants use a ton of water and create byproducts through this. Also, municipal sewage. We're talking about sewer systems. Now, sewer systems, yes, they treat most of the pollutants in there, but not all of it. And then it gets dumped right back into our water system. And last but not least is agriculture. Fertilizers and pesticides, which are not good for the environment, are also unfortunately carried into the soil, and that can trickle into nearby water systems and pollute that water system. All right, now let's talk about land pollution. So another interesting fact, the average American generates 4 pounds of solid waste per day, which includes the use of cardboard, newspapers, plastic utensils, paper plates, etc., etc. So what to do about this? Well, there's a solid waste disposal program, or AKA, through sanitary landfills. This is the most common strategy to deal with this waste that's produced by humans. Now, unfortunately, what can happen is this waste can leak into the soil and it can contaminate local water systems. What has happened over the last 50, 60 years is that there are more regional and larger dumps than there are small local ones today. And last but not least, hazardous waste disposal. What to do with unwanted byproducts such as acids, cyanides, and strong solvents. All right, well, these must be put in protective containers, usually labeled, all right, as hazardous waste, and then reported to the EPA of how much was created and where it was put. Now, if these hazardous wastes can leak, it can cause much more damage than landfills. It can cause cancer, it can cause mutations, it can even cause immediate death depending on the byproduct. All right, we'll talk more about this in class. See you then.